Fast forward, it's grown to become, as you said, one of the largest in the world in terms of its social reach. There's over 25 million people that turn to us every day to be inspired about travel and tourism, who are looking for those, those moments of inspiration. And the parallel paths have been seeing this explosion of mobile technology, this explosion in use of social media, and actually finding that we were one of the brands that embraced that very, very early and then became a reference point for people as they started to explore where they wanted to go in the world. But the business side of it, which is where we work very, very closely with marketing professionals, specifically within destinations and hotels, is as a strategy and a content agency, which is helping them to take all the amazing things that make up their tourism ecosystem, their hotels, their areas of natural beauty, the raw materials that they have in their countries that are parts of travel, their airlines, their tour operators, really everyone that plays a role in the travel ecosystem. We come in and we make content for them. And then we teach them how to use that content on the digital and social platforms that people are now spending their time. And where we've been successful is recognizing that perhaps in prior years, travel consumers would go to magazines, maybe they go to TV to watch ads on where to go. But now as technology has really moved mobile and social, so much travel inspiration is beginning on these platforms that we're able to help our partners be a part of that discussion. Wow, that's a lot. And from what I recall, you've also done national tourism campaigns for you did the rebranding of Egypt Yes, so this has been really exciting for us because we started as this community on social media, and what we realized is more and more progressive travel marketeers realized that they needed to market their countries differently. They needed to make content differently. They needed to be on the right kind of platforms to get tourists to start coming to them. So we have actually become, the agency of record for Jamaica, for example. And that's a country that's hugely dependent on tourism. It's an iconic tourism destination, and they're very, very forward thinking. We've been very lucky that they selected us to be the agency that looks after everything for them. But yeah, you mentioned Egypt. We do the same thing for the US, enormous tourism board, for the Philippines, for Abu Dhabi, Dubai, and on and on. And really, it's these tourism boards that are leaning into how you make content for the future traveler. And our mantra is always that if you start investing in content and digital and social, you are building and protecting your tourism industry for decades to come, not just for coming quarters. And I think that's incredibly important.
Wow. Speaking about content, many, many years ago, you told me that one of the posts that's very engaging on beautiful destinations is any post that has to do with Santorini in Greece. Is this still the case?
It very much is. And I'm actually excited to share that it's really becoming broader around Greece. So initially, I think the mystique and the magic of Santorini, we all know how beautiful and iconic it is. As more and more destinations within Greece have become known, and the individuals in those destinations have begun to use digital and social to show the world what they look like, we're seeing really amazing videos coming from all over the country. And you know how passionate I am about Greece, both personally and professionally. But it's been incredibly exciting for me to see how many more Greek destinations have then become discovered through digital and social channels. And I'm really, really excited for what that means for the future of Greek tourism.
I'm very happy to hear that. And I think I speak on behalf of everybody in Greek tourism when I say thank you for loving our country so much, because you keep coming back every year. You post amazing content, and you're an inspiration, I think, for a lot of travelers. I mean, we've traveled together, and I see how people walk up to you in the Greek islands and they say, "Are you Jeremy Johnson, really?"
Thank you.
So with that in mind, and I know you've been to a lot of places in Greece, but what do you think is your favorite destination, if you have one?
I do. Well, I know you've, so for viewers that don't know, Katerina and I are longtime friends, and I've always turned to her for advice on what to do in Greece and where to go. And you very kindly suggested some off the beaten path places this summer. So Foligandros was one of the most amazing places I think I've ever been. And I didn't realize what Folegandros was before I went, and I certainly hadn't had it on my list of places to go to when I thought about Greece. And obviously it's fantastic to see icons like Mykonos and Santorini kind of leading the way and being the introduction point for tourists to come. And so we see the American market, which is spending big dollars, is really attractive as a market segment, knowing Santorini, knowing Mykonos and coming, and then seeing that they can actually very easily explore other parts of the country from those kind of central bases. So getting out to Milos, getting out to Folegandros, getting out to those places, I think is incredibly important. And I've certainly really enjoyed doing that, and just seeing different sides of Greek life. Coming in and basing myself in Athens for a few days, really kind of walking the streets and having that city experience, and knowing just within a couple of hours I can get out into the magic of being in the Greek islands, and really it's it's one of my favorite countries in the whole world. It's why I keep coming back.
We're happy to hear. Hopefully you'll be back next summer as well.
Absolutely.
Did you feel safe traveling to Greece this year?
Very safe. And actually, we had an amazing experience, because when we came, it was just in between that window where there were peaks happening in Europe and lots of narratives about how unsafe it was to travel. And Greece was open. And I think the Greek Tourism Ministry and the government at large had put in place a process that actually meant that I, as a tourist, felt very safe. Before we got into any of the boats that we used to get around, we were checked. We filled out the paperwork. They were tracing us. Before we got into the country, there were checks. It really felt like it was a well thought through plan. And when we came, we had an amazing experience in the different islands we went to. Everyone was adhering to COVID protocols, from the bartenders and the waiters and waitresses who were giving you the hospitality experience on the ground, all the way through to the people actually in the hotels. And we stayed in sort of established hotels in Athens where there's very detailed protocol, and then little boutique places out in the islands, and they all did it very well. So yes, I felt very safe.
Okay, that's great. We're very happy to hear that. Where do you plan to go next year? Do you know yet or no?
Well, if anybody is watching this that has recommendations, I am really open. I feel as though I probably know 5% of the country, and even though I've been many times, I haven't explored as much as I could. Certainly doing the main Greek islands that I've done have been the ones focused around kind of Santorini and Mykonos and the Cyclades, but I know that that's only a percentage of many more exciting places to go. And we have actually started featuring more Greek content on Beautiful Destinations. And Katerina, I always get the name wrong, but the destination that has the beautiful kind of pillars with the monasteries built into them, do you know the ones I mean?
Meteora, yes.
Wow. Yeah, brilliant. Like, we posted it very recently, like in the last week, and it blew up, and people were just like not knowing that is Greece. And this is one of the things I always tell my friends, is that you can land in Athens and you can be in fundamentally different tourism experiences within a matter of hours. So if you are a sun and a beach and a lion do nothing, there are Greek islands that allow you to do that. If you're a sun and a party, there are islands that allow you to do that. If there's deep culture and deep interests around archaeology, around history, around Greek myths and legends, which is something that I've loved since I was a little kid, there are places that you can do that. And it's something that I think gives you the confidence that you can keep coming back to the destination, knowing you'll have something different every time.
I'm very happy to hear that, because that's what we think as Greeks. So it's wonderful that you have spotted that.
Yeah.
What do you think about Greek food and Greek people and the experiences here?
The tourism sector wouldn't be as successful and as important to the country if it wasn't for the people. And fundamentally, I've been very fortunate of going around the world, visiting lots of different places. And there are some stunning countries that don't match up to Greece, because the Greek people really are the kind of secret sauce that puts it over the edge and makes it so very special. Greek food obviously has been a sort of a famous export that has gone around the world that everybody knows and everybody loves. But when you eat Greek food in Greece, there's, it's second to none. I think also as a people, Greek people have always been incredibly warm, and their nature lends themselves to the hospitality industry, which I think is a very certain cultural nuance that I think doesn't exist around the world. There are certain destinations that have opened up where their people aren't necessarily as warm or as friendly or as used to providing hospitality, and Greeks, it comes as a second nature. So, I sound like I'm an ad for the tourism board, but there's just so many reasons why it makes it such a great destination. So that's why I keep coming back.
Wonderful. Well, we hope to see you next year as well. And now, since we are experiencing this pandemic, Obviously, the big question is, how is tourism changing after this pandemic? Where do you think it's heading? Are we still going to be traveling the same way we've been traveling all these years? Are things changing? What trends are you seeing?
Yeah, so there's a whole host of trends. Maybe if I start on recovery. So a lot of the clients that we work with are looking at recovery and recovery positioning, and two very distinct insights are coming out. The first is that the bounce back in the majority of the countries that we're seeing that rely on tourism will come from the domestic market. Individuals just feeling more comfortable traveling shorter distances, maybe not necessarily traveling in long distance flights, maybe destinations they can drive to. Some of the data that we saw coming from the World Travel and Tourism Council suggested that people were looking at the shared economy to find Airbnb type experiences because they may be more remote. There may be less people than they were in a hotel, or if they were going for hotels, they were looking for ones that had exceptional cleanliness standards. And I think that is now absolutely across the board. So looking at the comeback through the lens of local domestic tourism, I think is the first piece. I think the second piece, and I believe it is maybe less relevant for Greece because you're so strong in leisure tourism, but certainly many of the destinations that are reliant on business tourism will see decreases in business tourism because you can have meetings like this. I think challenging as it is, we're all used to doing Zoom calls now instead of going and flying to the destinations that we were flying to. So I think those are two big trends that will happen on the physical tourism side. On the cultural side, I feel very, very encouraged to see that I believe there will be a movement towards more sustainable travel and sustainable tourism, and an idea, number one, we absolutely will not have a tourism industry if we don't protect our natural resources and our natural assets. And, we're all very, very passionate about our countries, and we care deeply about the things that make those experiences possible. So sustainable tourism that protects the environment, looks after local people, respects local culture, especially in a place like Greece where there is so much culture and there is so much natural resources. I think that's a very, very good thing. So I think that's a trend that will come back on the kind of macro level. And then from a marketing side, within tourism marketing, we're certainly seeing the smart marketers moving their focus towards the digital and social platforms, because you'll be unsurprised to hear in the first waves of lockdowns, potentially in this next wave of lockdown that's coming over winter, people are spending more time on mobile. They're spending more time on social media. They're not going out into the streets and seeing billboard advertisements. They're not going out to shops and buying magazines. They are spending time inside on digital. And so we're working with a lot of our marketing partners to shift their marketing efforts towards those digital channels. And then the byproduct of that is, in order to be successful on those channels, they need to really fundamentally start making more content and do more content marketing.
So it's all about content creation.
It is. It really is. And I think it's something that's going to be a driver for the industry, where when I first came into the industry, certainly there was a reluctance to understand that shift. Mm-hmm. I read, and actually I think it was McKinsey put out a report maybe a month ago saying that the impact of COVID has moved technological advancement forward 5 years in just the 6 months that we've been shut down. And so as a tourism marketer, knowing now that technology is so far ahead, and that really to be relevant on the technology platforms that people are using, you need to have lots of relevant content. I'm hoping that's going to make the shift with the right kind of marketers to change the way that they market their destinations.
For sure. I have one question, because you said something about sustainable tourism before, and I know you've spent a lot of time in Rwanda, and you did a lot with them. Mm. I'm just curious, out of all the travel experiences you've had everywhere around the globe, what would be your three most memorable for different reasons?
Yeah, well, Rwanda, we can start there, because there was an amazing experience that is actually reflective of the country that I thought was a very, very good tourism story. So the beginning of it is we know, I mean, the majority of people know Rwanda for what happened in the genocide in 94. And so there is a narrative about that country that was driven by that event. But when you actually get there and you realize that the country has completely transformed itself, it's completely redone its whole kind of national identity. Plastic bags were banned there 15 years ago. Single-use plastics were stopped in the country this year. They have a fundamentally different approach to the way they think about the sustainable development of their country. So one of the most memorable experiences I ever had was going and doing one of the guerrilla trek experiences, where my guide actually was a former poacher. And when I met him for the very first time, he was a really funny guy. He was, the first thing he said to me was, "I've killed 15 elephants." And I was like, "What?" And he explained that in a prior life, there was no way to feed his family. There was no way to support the community. There was no way to live other than doing this. And what he explained was that when the Rwandan government decided to reposition itself through tourism,